we do have a cool conversation today. So thanks everyone for joining us. I'm here with our CEO, Chris Cloutier, CEO of Autoflow. Has a nice sound to it.
Oh, it almost rhymes, doesn't it, Craig?
It does. Yeah, no, it absolutely does. But no, thank you so much for joining us, folks. As we move through this part of the quarter, as we enter the holiday season, as the end of the year approaches, we wanted to do a general update on the product. Some of the things we've been working on, some of the things you may have already seen in a recent email we sent out, but maybe some of those things we need to show you a little bit more detail. And then there's some of the bigger projects that we are working on. We asked you for some questions at the beginning of the registration process. I'll invite you guys to go ahead and chat with us as well. I'm going to try to make sure you all have that ability real quick here in chat. And just so you know, the questions that we received at the beginning, they do take on several different colors. One of the silliest questions I received was, why did we require a question field? I took that to heart and I removed the requirement. And now you will see the answer of why I had it as a required field to begin with. Some of y'all won't ask questions unless we really force it. That's okay. You're still here and we're going to go through some of the updates. But some of you that asked the silly questions, I love you guys. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. And there's also some wonderful comments. We got a lot of general questions on the product. We also have some very feature specific questions. We're going to try to hit on a lot of them. We're certainly not going to be able to cover them all, but I do have your questions. So we will definitely follow up with you regardless. Now, the number one question and the thing on everybody's mind. Why Autoflow? Chris?
Oh man, this brings me back 2019 when we tried to change the name originally to Autoflow. Then I got a cease and desist letter from somebody who actually owned a trademark close to what we had, but wasn't exactly what we had. And they had a product that wasn't even on the market, but it was going to be this huge product. And we had to change from Autoflow to AutoTextMe. We changed from AutoTextMe to Autoflow back to AutoTextMe. Some people, Craig, still refer to us as Autoflow, interestingly enough. Absolutely. And why Autoflow is because I think that it covers more of what we do. AutoTextMe is very limiting in the name. It's a great name for the original product that came out, which was
great
workflow
name.
Texting. That's all we did in the beginning, right? Workflow texting, workflow. What we've done over the last 8 years is added inspections. We've added work orders. We've added a QC sheet. We've added marketing pieces. We've added different types of views into the data. I think it's more encompassing to that whole workflow type idea that we're a automated workflow type engine to help you in your shop to automate that workflow. So I think Autoflow very much correlates with what we really want to be now versus what we were then. Good Absolutely. Answer?
Oh, man, I think that's a great answer. You know, and some people may remember when I first joined Autoflow, it was Autoflow at that time. So for me, this is the second time as well, just because, well, that's what you guys were when I started with you. When I first saw your speech at Apex in 2017, you were up there giving a keynote and you were representing Autoflow. So going back to AutoTextMe, that was actually the original challenge for me. Now I'm so used to saying AutoTextMe, of course, Autoflow will be a little bit of a transition. Folks, this is a soft rollout. We do still have our AutoTextMe emails. You'll still see us doing that for now, but as we transition into 2023, you can expect a lot more of the Autoflow items. We will have different emails. Don't worry, we'll have our emails forwarding your emails so that it won't affect you nearly as much as it will affect us.
And Craig, we were so forward thinking to make the logos almost look exactly the same. Yes. That way, the transition, hopefully in people's mind, is going to be very simple. So it will be a slow rollout. We have a lot of people who see us as AutoTextMe. We want to make sure that everybody understands we're going to Autoflow. That's why we didn't just go, hey, nope, we're this new thing, and everything else goes away. Plus, you know that Google really likes, when you create a name and you create content out there, it's very hard. You lose that Google juice when you switch over names. So it's like you said, hopefully by next summer, I would assume that we would be fully Autoflowed.
Beautiful. No, and I do invite you guys to check out the new website that is up and live. You'll see a lot of the links still go back to the AutoTextMe site too, but the Autoflow website is fully functional. The cool thing is, every time I type the company name now in an email, it doesn't automatically make a link as a website when I just say Autoflow. But when you say autotext.me, it always wants to make that hypertext link. So, hey, we're just making improvements all over the place. I love it. But now really though, Chris, touching on the final piece on that is Autoflow is a better name. The most training that we do in my department is we talk workflow, we talk processes, we talk efficiency, we talk all those things. It feels like texting has always been sort of a secondary piece
Correct.
to what we do best. So this just fits so much better. I'm glad we were able to do it.
Yes, it's exciting new times. I'm glad we finally got the trademark. We shouldn't get sued again. We were able to go and buy that trademark from that company that never launched their product, and we were able to take it over. So I think this time we're clear and we can stay on course.
Smooth sailing. I like it.
Smooth sailing.
All right, folks. So as far as the newest features in AutoText.me, I want to just touch briefly on this piece here because we've been releasing some code for the core part of the product. And there's going to be some other modules that we're going to talk about later on here, but I want to focus first and foremost on the core product. We've had reporting rewrites of the reports, really, as far as I know, technically bottoms up, and they should function very much the same, but a lot more efficient. And there's also a little bit more customization on it as well. We're going to just look at very, very briefly at that, but more so I want to talk about the MSO management changes that we've made recently for you folks that have more than one location, or you folks that are considering opening another. I think it's fantastic. And of course, communication preferences. And this is going to take be very important for us for the upcoming module that we'll discuss later as well. And then tech flow. We talk about flow, we're Autoflow, and tech flow has been getting a lot of our attention, in particular with technician sortable columns. And then we also have made some improvements to the DVI with sub statuses. So let's take a look inside of the application, and we will start in Craig's awesome auto service. So let's get that over here again. I like to tell people my background is in the transmission industry, and that is also a pun, as my background on my desktop is also a transmission. We like puns. So here's Craig's awesome auto. And where I'm going to go first actually is on this MSO management part. A lot of you, and I see several in the attendance right now, have more than one location. So you may not have experienced this yet because it's brand new, but we can now go into this manage MSO accounts, and there's this ability for you to create read-only accounts. That is essentially a login that you can create that can choose from the dropdown which shop it wants to go to look, but not touch anything. So you'll be able to assess the reports. This is ideal for your managers, especially multi-store locations. You want to make sure each store is doing what you want them to do. Having a read-only account for your key people is an easy way for them to go to your main store, and from that main store, go into all the other locations and look at what they need to do. The other thing that we added is the ability to have an actual admin. Now, I would recommend that we would create a MSO admin for you in your other store. Notice that in AutoText.me's managed users this year, we've added the ability to have more than one administrator. If you missed that note, now you know. This also will allow you to use that administrator and go and administrate other shops with just one actual login. You don't have to go create individual admins for every single location now. You can go to each location with a single one. So if you want that set up, I would encourage you to reach out to either myself, support, or one of our trainers. Support will put it into one of your account reps that helped onboard your shop, and then they will help you manage this piece. So if you're interested, don't hesitate to reach out. I think support would be the best way to make sure we don't miss your emails there. support@autotext.me is still the main email. Chris, question I would have that I didn't hear asked, what happens if they hit support@autoflow.com? Is that all set yet? I think we're still sticking with the AutoText.me piece.
That's correct. As we roll things out, and we will forward emails, and we will set up the groups that will properly handle, but they will all go to one place.
Beautiful. We don't miss a thing. All right. So the next thing I want to do, and Chris and I had talked a great deal about this leading up to probably it was about the beginning of third quarter. We've added the ability to do sub statuses inside of the DVI. These are pretty cool. These are our solution, at least for now, for all of you that want to have that fourth status, right? Fourth status, the non-applicable status. But what you can actually do with this is, of course, you can say what you need to say, checked and okay. And this note will go into the DVI. or you can say not applicable and not applicable. Still a green item. So that's just one example. AMRA standards for the UICS language. If any of you are members of AMRA and use that, the 1, 2, 3, 4 for yellow items, the ABC type codes for red items can all be done. The thing that we've most recently accomplished for this piece is that when we duplicate export or import an inspection, those sub statuses go with it. That makes it very easy for us to share completed inspections that have those items in it. And so if you are interested in testing this out, particularly with me and Michael in the training department, reach out to us. We can give you some of those inspection sheets that are leveraging that feature, let you test that out. I think it's a great advancement to the DVI, helps speed technicians up a little bit. Just to show you how this works, if I have this sheet edited and I want to go into a DVI, those items on that DVI, we'll just go into this one here. And when I go into that walk-up section, you'll notice that I have these options. I click it and it puts the note in. Guys, I don't think there's a faster way for technicians to be able to do an inspection and get the notes that you want them to be able to do. These are a whole nother level of note drop downs that I'd really like to get some more feedback on. Tire stores, Chris, they're the ones eating that up the most right now, especially the fast turnaround, especially in states like Michigan right now in winter storms. Those winter tires are going like crazy. The tire guys are really, really loving this piece. So yeah, thanks, Dave. I'm glad to see people interested in that. So if you are, make sure you email us.
And you can apply this in different levels, right, Craig? You can apply it at an item level, or you can apply it, right? So if you had one particular thing like a timing belt or a timing chain, right? That's one of the problems that a lot of people have both on an inspection sheet. And they say, well, you can't have a belt and a chain. So you could apply this individually to each one of those items, correct?
Correct.
And then give that.
I have an example right here too with this 4 tires inspection. This is courtesy of More Tires. They had a great idea with this piece. And we actually put the tire tread depth. This is brakes. Sorry, this is brake millimeters. So pad life remaining. And we have those all built into this too. So that when we do an inspection with those sort of pieces, notice I have that on its own category. But what Chris is talking about too, if I wanted to have a very specific set of sub statuses for the line item that didn't fit in that category, you would be able to do this. And these sub statuses would override what you had at the category level. So it's very similar to the way we did notes, but a little different. And if you want to see that piece in action, I love showing this, because if I go into that DVI again and I choose that little 4 tires inspection, you can get an idea of just how fast you can go through this sort of an inspection piece, especially if they've already done the measurements, right? They have all those abilities to go in and make those marks. Less typing for techs, click, click, done and out. I think this has been a fantastic evolution. So yeah, guys, email us. I will happily go into that. Now, one other piece I want to highlight inside of the DVI component is actually related to a texting component. And so I'm going to borrow our customer, Joe Paluca, here as an example. We've started to think about customer communication preferences very differently. Presently, opt-outs have been really one of the only ways that you have to know if someone wants to text in a certain way or not. So now, and you'll notice this first and foremost, it's more prominent in the micro site. We call the digital inspection page, the view, the client view. This is referred to us as a micro site. And this is where the communication preferences live. And what the customer will do in this particular case is they have to plug in this PIN number if they enter in their phone number. I'm going to go with my number there. And when I get that PIN, I'll be able to actually deal with my preferences. Obviously, we had to think of a security component to this. We don't want someone else who received customer's link by error or any other way to be able to change the communication preferences for a specific individual. So we plug in that code as the customer, and now I get to control my communication preferences. And it's very clear. We have text, email, text, email, text, email for 3 different categories. And yes, this is a teaser of what's coming up here in a moment. The marketing seasonal elements. We do have some new items on this that we'll go into. And of course, simple toggles for the customer, and you're good to go. Now, we did make this easier for service advisors too. Obviously, the customer-facing piece, that's one component, and I should probably back up. There's a secondary view for this that I think is important to understand. Customers that are looking at this in cell phone size are going to see the customer communication preferences right there in their customer info. Same thing, different view. Now let's go into the customer profile page. So I'm just going to go look for our guy, Joe Paluca. We're going to grab his profile. And of course, you can access his profile if he already has a ticket on the board. And here we can go and change his preferences. These preferences are right here. And you will also notice that the texting preferences have 2 toggles down here. So those are the 6 things. I do find the addition of Text Manager this year as one of the best enhancements to Auto Text Me. Having those preferences right there for active customers, chef's kiss, right? That's the easiest spot you're going to do for active customers. Make sure your folks, your service advisor staff are having the conversations with this. I think that's going to smooth things over real good as you start to transition into what's coming next. Now, I want to go back into our presentation view, which is somewhere on my other screen. Yeah. Well, let's do this. There we go. Smooth transitions. This one's for Joe to edit.
Smooth
Yes.
transitions. Nice, Craig. You've done this before.
Oh, yeah, but not so much with Canva and as much in Google Slides. But Canva's so cool. Jeremy put me onto that. I'm loving it. It's actually really great.
Very cool tool.
There's just a human component. But folks, you have seen this A2P 10 DLC registration process. As Chris knows, we've been having a lot of fun with this piece. You guys have had the messages come across the banner of your shops, many of you at least. We've been re-registering clients, and this is text registration regulations just changing all the time. We had a major registration last year, and now we're doing it again this year. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this explaining the details, but there is a lot to this. Long story short, carriers are in an absolute yank to try to reduce spam messaging, and they want to make sure that there's good deliverability. There's also some people that are going to profit from this in the middle, and that would be the TCR component there. They are the registers. From your shop, it goes directly to us. We're an independent software vendor, an ISV in this example. We work with a direct connect aggregator, which would be Twilio in our case, and they have to register all numbers that go through Twilio with TCR in order for carriers to take that as a trusted number that can participate in an A2P network, A2P application to person. To sum it up best, if I were to text Chris from my own cell phone, that is peer-to-peer, person-to-person texting. When you text from Auto Text Me on an application, that is application to person. Pretty much sums it up, right, Chris?
Sums it up, Craig. Unfortunately, it used to be a lot easier back when Auto Text Me was born. As with anything, regulation kicks in. Everybody starts putting their hands out, and you get a lot of layers, and that's what we've created here. And I'm sure a lot of our audience has had to go through this drill several times with other vendors as well, as this is required pretty much across the board for anybody who uses any type of A to P type application.
Folks, it affects every business in the U.S.
Yes.
Yep. Every business. Oh, I want to answer a couple questions that came up on updating numbers and email. Yes, you can update numbers and emails from that customer profile. That's no problem. But to Mario's other question, Gene, will updates that you do for communication preferences, I'm assuming communication preferences was the relation to your question. Do we push that into Protractor, or I'll take it as any integration? We do not push any communication preferences at this time to your shop management system. And in most cases, they don't have as many preferences as us either, so we aren't seeing any of theirs. So that is something you will manage completely in Auto Text Me. Now, I want to jump into a couple of our latest initiatives. With this being a product update, one of the things, and some of you I'm certain have seen this, is IDVI. And you might be wondering what this is. And Chris, I'll ask the question too. Does your shop see extended warranties?
Yes, we all do, Craig.
Yeah.
If you're in the auto repair industry, you see warranties, and it is a laughable matter.
Yeah, it's not fun,
subject.
right?
Not fun.
takes time, and you're waiting for an adjuster or an inspector to come out and tell you if you know how to diagnose the car and if it's okay to begin working on it. Well, IDVI actually fills a gap where that inspection can be done by you. And it's pretty cool because if some of you have seen this already, I'd be curious to hear if you have. The warranty company will now send a link, which will open up an inspection where they request certain pictures be taken of the product in question. And you may notice, wow, that DVI looks a lot like AutoTextMe's DVI, because it absolutely is. A little bit of a different product, a little bit of a different usage, but the DVI experience is effectively the same. Subtle differences in the way we have to manage that stuff. But that's something that you can at least be proud of. The fact that we're trying to make automotive extended warranties suck less. And if you do find yourself working with a warranty company and it's just not going with the time schedule, it's not flowing the way your shop wants to flow, make sure you give them our website and talk to them about IDVI. We'll be happy that you did, and I think you'll benefit as well. It's a win-win for clients when you can reduce the time that repairs take by days because approvals can happen quicker and more efficiently. It's just an obvious victory for every party involved. The warranty companies too. In fact, they save money by not having to send a human being to your shop. It's just an absolute all-around win-win. Fantastic thing, and I'll give credit to Scott Smyer on our team and Greg Kindle, who have been working very hard on that product and making sure that the solution is intact. I'd love to show you more about it, a little bit more involved conversation, but it's just one of those pieces. I'd like you guys to know it's out there and it's been getting a little bit of our attention.
And hopefully it's coming to your shop soon.
Yes. Don't be shy on those extended warranties. There was a time we didn't take them anymore. We got so burnt out back in the early 2000s. It was just horrible dealing with them. Faxes and all this stuff that had, maddening. Almost needed a surcharge to deal with it. Now, my favorite thing on this conversation is the marketing module. Chris, this has taken some of our attention, hasn't it?
It has. It's a labor of love, Craig. A labor of love.
Now, folks, we do have an advisory panel that's been helping us vet this out. And we brought on Jeremy Glasgow to our team. He's our VP of marketing. Some of you know Jeremy. Some of you have talked to him. You've seen him in some of our webinars. Jeremy is absolutely an outstanding individual to work with. He's helped inform so much of the direction that this is taking. Now, AutoTextMe, having that name, number one question we would get is, do you send mass texts out? No, we did not. Auto texting was more about automatically texting your customers for the visit, very much a transactional text. So with us introducing marketing, this is an entirely new module. I'm going to show you what this looks like. We're going to go into a little bit of details here. I want to spend a good chunk of time on this. And if you have any questions on this, aside from just when can you have it, please let us know. But let's see if we can transition back into it again, smoother than ever with Craig's Awesome Auto once more. So I went 3 monitors now, Chris, but I don't think it makes me any better at these transitions. The marketing module is built into AutoTextMe. It's built right on top of it. You'll notice I go to my administrator menu. In this case, I go into the marketing tab here, which is new. You won't see it. Don't look for it yet if we haven't toggled this on, but it will be there once you have access to this. I'm going to jump straight to the campaigns page first, just to give you a basic overview of what we're trying to do with this. Now, obviously, AutoTextMe already has follow-ups. AutoTextMe already has some other things that would fall into this category, really kind of teeter on that line of, is this a transactional text or is it marketing, that follow-up text where we ask for that review, where we help drive those reviews? That is a follow-up, but it is attached very specifically to a visit. This allows you to set up visit messages for just about anything to specific audiences. You can have follow-up campaigns aimed at new customers, for example, and you'll be able to set up that audience in order to find them. You can have general call to actions. You can set up drip type holiday messaging that you send out at recurring intervals. And all these things are going to be managed from this campaign manager. Before we go too much into the campaigns, I'll go backwards a little bit into the audiences, because this is what makes this effective. When you can custom tailor your audience that is why you will have very targeted messages go to people. The thing we don't want people to do is just send big mass blasts to the entire base of your shop. Chris, that's not even something you would do in your shop, right?
No, your opt-out is going to be very high.
Yes.
People do not like to get obtrusive or text or communication that they just let's just be honest. Do you, Craig, like it when the 2022 voting campaign text messages were coming across your email and text right before November? Probably not. Although you've had your candidates, but so I think it's the same thing. We just need to be careful, and you can go and blast your customers, or you can text your customer base. But as you're going to show here, right, you want to set up the right audiences. You want to basically drip, your emails or text messages, right? So you stay in touch with them over time, which is really effective marketing.
Oh, yeah. No, for sure. Yeah. But when people are sending me irrelevant stuff to my actual needs, now I will say the relevancy in the world of social media has remarkably improved, but you ignore this stuff. So my audience screen here, this is pretty slick. Let's take a look at now. I'm in a demo store for here because I don't want to use some of the real data on real customers on a live webinar here. But if you wanted to set up something for new customers very specifically, you can go and edit this audience. Now with this here, you have lifetime visit count, average spend per visit, lifetime spent. You can even, build audiences based off of deferred services. That piece will be added to this module soon. It's not active yet. Based on the last visit, more than or less than a certain amount of days. And then if you really want to target vehicle specific makes and models, even model years, or mileage ranges, people with high miles vehicles is going to be your target audience for a specific campaign. This allows you to custom tailor that. I think Cody did a great job on this, and lots of props to Cody Fraley on our dev team, working with Frank Walton as well. And this has come just leaps and bounds from an earlier version that was attempting to do some of these same things. But this refinement that we have now with these sort of variables is just outstanding. And you can see as you add this, you can begin to punch in more information for each of these items, or you can just keep it very simple.
And we did this, Craig, to mimic MailChimp, Constant Contact, some of the other campaigns, right? They allow you to set up your audience before you actually create your own campaign. So we wanted to make it a little more logical, maybe?
Yeah, I would say so. And then it has a flow to it as well. When you create these campaigns, I really like the way, and I'll do one that hasn't been live. We'll do this one here. The way our campaign builder flows has its own workflow and should be kind of familiar to our users. Of course, you can set up the different names for these things, whether it's continuous or one time. You can do text, email, both one or the other. And yes, there is going to be a formatted email that we'll be able to build a template with for you. And we also have you able to do a test sample so you can see what audience is actually going to be hit on this, or you could go all in and go live with a specific campaign, and that can be managed on the previous screen as well. You get a chance to pick your audience. You can even preview it here. You can choose all the different triggers on days or months that it's supposed to go out at. And then, of course, weekly, daily, monthly runs, however you want to set those up as well. The messaging setup uses variables, so it can be personalized to your clients. This is something that I think is pretty important. Obviously, especially if there's been a long time between when you sent a message to the customer. And key thing, this is from a marketing number. I should have started with that. Chris, this is a marketing number that we would be providing for you that these texts would go out from. So it's a different number for your client. So identifying yourself and making sure that greeting is in there is kind of a key thing. A big question that we've had before on this piece is what happens if somebody replies to the marketing message. We already thought about that. That message will appear inside of TechFlow. I will say that inside of Text Manager. Text Manager now gets a marketing filter. So any reply to a marketing message would appear inside of here. And that's going to be handled then through the main number of the shop when you start engaging with that client. So once they do reply to a marketing message, it'll seamlessly transition into a regular conversation like you're used to having. We try to think of everything. And now, This is a simple spot for you to test a message. You can plug in a phone number there that you want to send the sample message to, so you can make sure it actually is coming out how you imagined it. You go next even further and you get another little refinement on your audience. You can send it, choose not to send it to people who already have an appointment, right? If you had a goal of getting an appointment from your certain audience and you couldn't take out other things before, well, we give you that ability here. This should keep you from adding noise to someone who simply doesn't need the update. And then we have a summary page where you get to review everything, and then you can hit save. And that's the campaign builder. Chris, anything to add on that piece?
No.
Perfect.
Thank you. So stated well.
One other thing I'm going to show you on this piece is a setup page. This is something that we do have some best practices for, so we'll go through that. Once this becomes available to our users, we'll dive into this a lot more detail. We'll have some more training material for you as well, and we're going to have some more refined best practice for this. I already have some best practices lined up in several other instances for some of these variables, but this is going to give you a lot of control over some things, especially if you are the type of shop that just maybe don't want to hit your clients on a Sunday, but you still want to be able to include them in an audience and the schedule goes out. All that stuff should be in place for you in that setup. So that is the sneak peek for marketing. I do see a couple of questions. Managing for multiple audience from different locations. Actually, there is a great piece for that. So Peter, if you are working with your audiences, let me go back into the audience page. You can import and export audiences. That little download button, you can export that, and then we can import those templates directly right here. And I'll have to look at your specific example a little bit closer here. Will initiate appointments from kiosk if requested. So appointments as a clickable link type of thing, that is something that will get worked in down the road in the marketing piece. But kiosks, definitely a component of Auto Text Me that I will highly recommend people be using when they start leveraging this to its full potential. All right. So let's take a look again here at our presentation. Full screen mode, that was smoother. And Chris, what is Baywatcher?
Baywatcher. What is Baywatcher? This is one of our latest products. It's still in beta. We're about to be in our version 1. We're about to launch version 1. This is something I've been talking about for quite some time. I think we finally have refined it enough to where it makes sense. And now we're going to put it out. So what is the premise of Baywatcher? It's true efficiency and productivity. So it's an analytical tool that tells you exactly what's happening in your bays. It tells you how long a car's been in the bay, how many bays it's been in. It also tells you any bodies that's been on the car, how long the body's been on car. So what we're really trying to do is get a true picture of actually what's happening in the bowels of the bays, because we just don't understand what we think we know versus what is the reality. And that's how many times has a car gotten into bay 1? How has it gone from bay 1 to bay 7 to bay 3 to bay 4? Has it sat there for 12 hours on a diag? And we're just unaware. How could we use that data? How could we leverage it? So once again, 2 pieces that we're looking at with Baywatcher. One is the real-time type data. How can somebody in the shop use it real time? How could your service advisor use it? And how could your technician potentially use this data to make better decisions? And then the second part is the analytical part, which says, okay, now that I have this data and I've seen how long something sits here, or I've seen how long this takes, I can make some adjustments with my team to get things in and out quicker in the shop. I'm going to do a quick demo, Craig. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. I'm just going to a quick one. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here.
This is one of those products that it's easy to get lost in if we go too detailed.
You got it. So let's talk about the first thing. This is basically the bay board. So we don't really want to create a whole new view for somebody to stare at, because as you said, we already have 2 screens we got to look at. This would be a 3rd screen, but we call these bay cards. And these bay cards, you can look and see a couple different ways to view this data. This is a view that if you wanted to use, you could. And it just kind of describes each bay for the day, what's gone in and out of that bay, what's currently in the bay, and the times that it's spent. So you can see here, there's a couple different pieces of information you could look at. Right here, let's look at this bay 3. It's interesting, right? This has this bay time exceeded space ceiling. So there's a couple different alerts you could set. You can set an alert that's for the bay ceiling, which says once I go over a certain amount of time for this bay, I'm going to then I'm going to alert the shop in a couple different ways to say, hey, it's exceeded this. So if I had an oil change bay that I always wanted my oil change to happen in 45 minutes, this would be something I would set for that bay. Once it exceeded the 45 minutes, the shop would get an alert via email. They'd also get an alert in some of the other interfaces, which I'll show here in a minute, right? Once again, letting you know that, hey, whatever time you had, it's exceeded. The other one is just the work order time in general. So if your work order time gets exceeded by the bay time, or the bay time exceeds the work order time, it's also going to alert you as well, because that's something that we think that most shop owners would want to know.
Yeah.
If once again, I have an hour diag.
Yellow, right? And that bay time was exceeded, but then you see the work order has 16 hours on it. And then you see the picture of the engine outside of the vehicle. And a lot of that makes sense.
Absolutely. So let's look at, once again, this bay is empty right now, bay 1. Here's something kind of cool, Craig. We can go look at all the different vehicles that were in here. And we can look at the different bay times that they spent in here. And you can see, okay, 8 minutes bay time. Well, this is waiting approval. So we just got it in there. We probably had some sort of inspection on it, and then we pushed it back out. But there's even deeper information we get here to in a minute. So we talked about how could a shop potentially use it. And this is where we're looking at integrating this into a couple different views. I'm just going to show you the active customers. And I'll make it quick because I do have like customer data here. So I'm scrolling real fast and I minimize the screen so you really can't see this. So when Google replays this, they're like, oh, hold on a second here. So you can see here, we also have these little cameras, which says, hey, it's been in bay, and we have some statistics on there. This red one shows that, hey, you've actually exceeded your work order time, like we talked about with your bay time. So not only if it's in bay, we're letting you know if it's been in bay at all and what time that it's spent in bay. So a lot of times we pull them in and we go park them. Well, we still want to show that information well. And here's that bay 3. Once again, here's the car. We look at the time that it's spent in, the body time, everything else. So there's some interesting data that we're going to get to here. So also, I want to get over to this view real quick here too, Craig. And this
I'm just amazed. I'm still dwelling on the fact that you have a 2003 Ford Explorer, and it's worth putting an engine in, because those things were pretty much cash for clunker type cars here in Michigan for sure.
Yeah, we've all kinds of different things have happened over time. So this is kind of cool as well. That was for the service advisor. So once again, your service advisor can see what's happening. They can see cars that have been in bay, cars that are currently in bay, cars that have been in bay and now are parked. And they can look at the times, a mini bay card of what's happened to that vehicle over time. And then also here's in your inspection, you can see here the same type information. So this one's not actively in bay, but if a technician were to go get this car and pull it in bay, this information would be there for this technician to use. What we're seeing, and people are like, well, how is this being used, Chris? How does it make sense? Why does it make sense? And it's really some things like your diag, that diag that you charge a customer 1 hour for. What does it really cost you? It's not an hour. I promise you that. Sometimes it's 8 hours. Sometimes it's 12 hours. Sometimes it's 15 hours of bay time. But what happens, it gets passed from person to person to person. And that information gets lost every time. That amount of time, that sense of urgency gets lost every time. Now, by the time it gets to your top tech and your top tech gets to go, don't get me wrong, they're in there. But were they aware that it was in the bay 7 other times, that it spent that much time in the bay? And I'm telling you this right now, your people don't, because my people didn't. They hate this and they don't hate it. It's just interesting at first when I told them and I said, hey, do you understand what's going on? And they said, whoa, this is not right. And I said, no, this is absolutely right. This is the truth, right? So what we make up in our head versus what's actually happened in our bay are two different things. And why is that? Because when you're in the bay, things are busy. And time goes by quickly, right? You're always trying to get this car in and out, and you're not really aware of the time slowdowns that happen. Let's just look at this. This is some very robust reporting. And there's things like tagging jobs. You can go tag your own jobs. And you can look at, like, if I wanted to look at a technician and I wanted to go look at a specific technician in oil changes, I want to look at it. Tristan oil changes, I can tag that. I can also filter via the technician and just look at specific things, specific states, a lot of information to delve into. What I really wanted to do here refresh this, is show this interesting example at the top, Craig, of the shot. Of course, as soon as I refresh it, I'm like, hold on, why? Here we go. So this is interesting right here, this car that Cisco worked on. And we see that the work order estimate time was 3 hours and 36 minutes. He completed in 3 hours and 31 minutes. The bay time was 9 hours and 2 minutes. The body time was 4 hours and 2 minutes, right? So that's a negative deficit, meaning that it spent a lot more time in bay than it did that we spent work. We can get into further detail. How many bays did it go into? Then you can see here it was over 2 days. That was the bay it spent in. And I don't want to, I hate sometimes bringing this example, Craig, because everybody looks at my shop and says, is your shop that bad? I'm like, no, my shop's really good. It's just amazing when you start really digging into some of this information and what you can see happening, right? So once again, it's a very analytical tool.
Hugely analytical. One of the things I really like seeing is exactly that. Like, it surprised me how many times a vehicle is in one bay, out another bay. Like, how many bays did this one hit? Look at that. Look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4 different bays. And one of them on and off again twice. I mean, which lift was that?
Work order estimate time.
Yeah.
And then the interesting thing here is what once again, what you see and the truth versus the truth. And I think that's what, once again, we make a lot of assumptions because we don't have this data. We never have had this data. So I even like this. These are the kind of examples I like, and I'm going to focus a little bit closer on this. Let's look. And it's kind of hard here. So 4 hours, 48 minutes. Craig, he clocked 14 minutes of time. You see that here? 14 minutes is what he clocked. The work order estimate time was 2 hours and 14 minutes. But then look at that body time, 1 hour and 50 minutes. So if I were to make a guess on what that job took, did it take 14 minutes because this is the technician clocking on and off a job, or actually
the human component,
trusting the cameras picking up the body saying that? And it's interesting, you've seen these pictures too, that sometimes you see the legs, sometimes you see the and I'm gonna get off. I don't want to sit on that too much because once again, there's some data that we need to protect. And I wish that, the problem with Baywatcher is I can't obfuscate the data very well. You got to use it live. So we don't have like a demo shop that we can sit there and actually show, because we'd have to have real cars coming in and out of the demo shop. But as you've had there for a picture, like we've had other pictures where it's looking at the legs. It can see the legs of the technician. It can see an arm of the technician. A lot of AI and machine learning type technology in this that basically shows and how it's reading what vehicles in bay, whether it can see the license plate or whether it can see the color of the car and look at the quarter panel and realize it's a Ford F-150. It's doing some automatic tagging there. Once again, whether it can see the arm of the technician coming out of the vehicle. These models that we use are incredible. The data that we're getting is incredible when it comes to the type of information we're seeing. And once again, more closer to the truth than we've ever seen when it comes to true bay efficiency. Would your individual shop owner potentially love this product? No, because I'm going to tell you this, individual shop owner, you're probably there. You're probably watching what's happening. But what we see this being very, very effective in is that multi-shop type operation where you have multiple things you need to cover. So yes, there's going to be some camera, there's going to be install, there's a edge device, there are cameras, we're going to have to install it correctly. We don't have pricing on this yet. We're in one beta shop now. We're about to launch into another beta shop before the end of the year. Hopefully by next quarter, we're hoping to have it in a couple more beta shops, and then hoping next year we can start opening it up to the different shops for true consumption. Lots of interesting things here, Craig. We've even thought about, what if you had an underperforming shop? What if you were a multi-shop operation? Let's say you had 6 shops and you had one high performer and you had one low performer. What if you just installed it in those 2 and you could look at the differentiation? Or what if you installed it in your one shop and as you brought on other shops, you then installed it those and you compare it against your top shop, right? And really see where the inefficiencies are happening. I think there's a lot of different ways that this product can be used.
A couple of questions that we're getting on this too, Chris. Are we selling the cameras?
So what we're going to do is have most likely a year subscription to this. And as part of the subscription, the hardware will come with it. And then after the year is up, it will be yours, the camera and all that stuff. Now you'll still pay for the subscription,
Right.
but we're probably going to do 1 year commitments on this. That way we can cover the costs of the hardware as throughout the year.
Sounds like a good deal.
Yes.
And we get questions like this every time we show it. How do you get to be a beta shop?
Let us know. I see Chad saying, yes, the best way is to let us know that you want to be a beta shop. Those in Canada, before you raise your hand, we might not travel to Canada yet. That will be on our roadmap for sure. Once again,
I'll go to Canada.
And will we hopefully get this to a point, there's some logistics. I know Peter's saying, dang it. Will we get this logistically worked out to where eventually will the installs be something that a shop can do? Like in the long-term future, that would be my hope. Of course, as soon as I say that, I have a lot of people cringing, and those who are part of the whole Baywatcher thing are cringing as they're like, there's no way. But I do foresee in the long-time future, whether that's a couple of years out, that we can send you the package and tell you how to set it up. Kind of like the blinds.com. Let me go measure my blinds and send you my setup. And then we kind of tell you, okay, this is, we know the measurements, we know other things. This is what we send you. You would have your own install team and follow our guidelines, but potentially not having us have to come out there to install.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Peter. How's you going by, eh? Oh, well, but no, hey, this is one thing I remember from the first versions of this that we had, even this overview mode. This one blew my mind. So like the alignment bay, which bay do you suppose it is in this shop, folks? It's number 5, right on, Peter. Yep, you got it. And then I'll ask again, which one in this shop?
You can tell that we don't do tires in this shop, right? And that alignment base,
Chris knows which one this shop is, of course.
Isn't it funny? Isn't it funny when your people are always saying, we need more bays? And it's like, do you really? Interesting. Why is that base? Do we need the alignment, the $60,000 alignment machine or the $30,000 machine with the $30,000 lift? Do we really need that? And when are we going to make our money back on that if the bay number 7, which is your alignment bay, is sitting empty? Yeah, these are stingers, Craig.
They are.
I'm not going to lie to you. As we delve into efficiency and productivity over time, these are the type of things that when you look at the truth, that and once again, my guys, one of the reactions is, well, how'd your guys react when you first started showing this data? And a lot of it's a lie. That's a lie, Chris. And then I said, no, it's not. It's not a lie. Have we increased? We've been able to look at technicians specifically. We've been able to look at we have been able to use this data. And I don't want to go into it because once you get into, let me look at the technician, let me look at the kind of jobs that they're doing. Let me see, Peter, great example is that guy never can do an oil change in under 45 minutes, right? Well, let's delve into that. And actually, what are his times and what are some of the roadblocks he may be having and how can we get him under that, right? Because now you have real data on how long that oil change lasts. You have real data on some of these other jobs that which you can tag directly and correlate to these people. So there is direct correlation between, and I think we're getting to a point where once we get this body on car even better, like really how efficient is your technician? Is he as efficient as the clock on, clock off the job says he was?
Mm-hmm. An excellent point, Terry.
I love that. Yeah. Take the emotion out of it. Absolutely. Yeah. Numbers are not meant to be emotional. They're just, and that's why everybody always says numbers are the truth. And well, some people agree with that and some people they do not agree with that. I'm one of the people that agree. Give me the numbers.
Let's talk about a feel component. How do your technicians feel about having cameras in the shop? I get that question every time we talk about this.
I think at this point that becomes a moot point because everybody has the security cameras in the bays now. I don't know too many shops that don't. And I think there was a big stink maybe 4 or 5 years ago when we were all putting security cameras in. And then all it took was the one customer that said that scratch was not there. And we were able to track it back and say, no, actually the scratch was there. See, we got these cameras that showed you. And then I think all the technicians said, no, we're good. So is this a little more creepy because it is super big brotherish? I think with anything, Craig, you can damage your people by playing
How are you
whack-a-mole.
using it,
But
right?
I think Terry just said it best.
Yes.
What if you set your baselines and you said, here's our KPI, here's what we're shooting for. Are you hitting your target?
Absolutely.
And if you're not, what can we do to allow you to hit your target? And I think that's what really, are you gonna beat people over the head with these numbers? Or are you actually going to leverage them to increase productivity and efficiency in your shop and just make people aware of things that they might not be aware of?
100%. No, and in shops that are using flat rate pay scales, or any technician who's just worried about their efficiency at all, the question in a hiring process, attracting technicians and retaining technicians especially, is a very difficult thing. And so a question that shops are likely already getting from their technicians is, what are you going to do to ensure that I have enough work? Right? And that's one component of it right here. It isn't just about the marketing and attracting the people and the appointments, but it's also going to come down to how efficiently things are flowing through the shop. And if you're investing in how things flow through the shop and can show that, I think that the caliber of technicians that you're going to get won't have that question of concern about cameras in the shop.
Craig, we talked about this, and I gave a presentation on this product a while back, and we brought up a gross example of a car being pulled in and out 12 times. And then once again, real data. Mm-hmm. And we talked about, okay, well, what if it took 10 minutes to go get the car, pull it in, rack it, and then pull it out?
I think that's a fair question on the 10 minutes, not a what if. It probably takes that much time.
So if you've done that 12 times and in 10 minutes of time, that's 2 hours of just purely wasted rack time. Is anybody in your shop aware of that? No. And as I just showed you in a real-time example, Golden Rule Auto Care, there was one that was pulled in 5 times. Mm-hmm. So once again, how can we start leveraging this data and pushing this data, making our people aware that there are inefficiencies we're still doing? And I love, the different types of shows, the CARM shows and everything, where we talk about applying Lean Six Sigma type principles into our shops. Well, once again, if you don't have the visibility and have the numbers, how do you really know that you're lean? Mm-hmm. You got to be able to measure it before you can manage it.
You got the gut. That's what that's for. Oh, maybe not.
Gut never lies, Craig. So interesting stuff there.
Absolutely. So at this point in the year, we're already starting to look at 2023. And a lot of our questions that we get are what sort of things we're working on, very feature specific questions. Some of you have an inside track on some conversations that we've had on a few of these things. There are some pieces that we're working on here at Autoflow. Got it right. That I think are going to be really impressive. One of them being the sales presentation module. There's electronic approval forms, ubiquitous now in this industry. I have some issues with a lot of them. The way I do the presentation, leveraging the DVI, feel like that's an area that can be improved on, that we're going to make a powerful impact. That is something that's in the works. I don't think it'll be this year. We're going to be hesitant on giving any deadlines to anything, but Q4, Q1 type of an outlook. And then Chris, you mentioned, and we've talked about this. I have an advantage, folks. I get to talk with Chris weekly, sometimes daily, on a lot of these cool things. So I get to hear about these concepts like smart DVI, and we get to trade ideas on this. This is a pretty fun part of my job. Chris, what is a smart DVI?
You'll just have to wait until 2023. No, Craig, it's just taking and applying some machine learning and once again, the artificial intelligence, the two buzzwords that's going around, and maybe making things a little easier to understand history within the DVI, or even maintenance type things to be able to, right now, the information is kind of all separated. So smart DVI starts really meshing those things together. So once again, we're looking at maybe maintenance tables up here. What if your technician saw the maintenance tables down in the inspection, right? And they knew that spark plugs need to be replaced at 80,000 miles, and they didn't have to go up there because right underneath your spark plug line item, it showed the maintenance recommendation was this. So that's just making that DVI that much smarter, right? And then once again, getting the information to your technician so he can, because really you want that technician to get that car in and out as quickly as possible. That's your production.
Yeah.
And not having to search for all that information. Right?
Things technicians don't want to do is have to bounce around and get data from multiple different points. And if we can put it right in front of them, I would call that just-in-time information right there while you're doing the inspection.
There you go. And that's the premise of smart DVI.
Brilliant. Now, Chris, we've talked a lot internally already. We talked a lot in the perspective of the software company, but I'm going to invoke both software company and the auto repair boss, 2023, what is the outlook looking like right now? What are the things that you would say for shop owners in particular to be looking out for?
With the couple minutes we have left, I
Yes.
think that we're going to see a little bit of a slowdown in the first quarter, second quarter. If it depends on what news you read, Craig, my gut tells me, because I have nothing to measure it off, that we're probably going to see a little bit of slowdown. Is it going to be that much effective when it comes to auto repair? Is it going to affect us that much? No. Are we going to have the record years that we've been having? I don't think we are. I think things are going to go back to more of is that 10% down, 15% down, 20% down? That's the question. I can't say, will it go down a little bit? Maybe 5%, maybe 10%. Yeah. The thing is, if you look at the way that the government's structured right now, you can't do a cash for clunkers. If they were, Craig, they would probably lose their base on the fact that if they put a bunch of ICE internal combustion engines on the road, they would probably piss off a lot of people, right? And then you can't put everybody in electric cars because, as we know, they're still they're too pricey. I think that they're going to be great technology, but you're still seeing a consumer kind of sentiment. So I think auto repair is going to be good, is from what I understand. Nobody's really worried about auto repair suffering bad. Now, depending on what you read, we'll see. So I think we've got a couple years of really good people fixing their cars. Like you said, we talked about this in one of my meetings with my employees. And you said it, we're seeing some of these cars that probably were dead coming back in and being kind of revived, right? For instance, we had somebody with an older truck come in and say, hey, it's been sitting in front of my house for a couple of years. I didn't want to deal with it, but hey, let's go ahead and get it in. It had some sort of electrical problem, had a draw on it. Let's get it in. What does it need? Right. And it didn't need that much to get it back up and running again. So I still think we're going to see that, right? We're going to see plenty of cars on the road because they're there. As Peter said, the golden age of repair. I think we're going to go into a good place. Maybe a little dip at the first quarter, second quarter, and then I think we're going to be fine for the next couple of years.
Nice. No, I think that overall it's a pretty positive outlook, especially in our industry, even as the hard times in the economy become a reality. That's encouraging, at least in our sector.
Craig, the one thing that COVID taught me, if anything, is we really don't know what's around the corner, but we can certainly try and prepare. And I would hope that as shop owners like you are, like we learned the lesson from COVID and we do have some cash in the bank. And if things do get a little tight, that we're not worried about, our payroll, hopefully. That because I know a lot of people did in COVID, right? It was totally unexpected. The thing that COVID taught me was it didn't matter how good of a business owner you were. There's just sometimes things that are out of your totally out of your scope that can bring your business down, as we witnessed with restaurants going under because nobody could even go to your restaurant, even if they wanted. Unimaginable. So hopefully we'll be able to get through it. Once we get through it, good outlook for auto repair for sure.
Outstanding. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Chris, for having this conversation with me and getting a chance to reach out to our clients on these new and exciting pieces. I know that delivery dates are extremely difficult to pin down for us here, and I know you all want them. We will definitely be in touch and reaching out and alerting you to these dates as they come together. We are looking at, hopefully, I can say this much with the marketing module, it will be Q4. Which is now just dwindling down to the last few weeks here of November that are useful. We have obviously the American Thanksgiving holiday and then another week after that. And then we're in December, folks. But we have great things on the way. Thanks so much for going along for the ride, everyone. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Craig. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.